I just did change out of my work. So got home for 20 minutes, ate and and this was, yes, I do.
All right, we're going to call to order the Park Township Board of Trustee meeting for January 11, 2024. So we'll start with an invocation by Trustee Spoolhoff, and then we'll say the pledge. So if you'd all stand.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Yep. Can you hear me? All right. Let us pray. Lord, we come before you at the start of this new year, 2024. We humbly reflect on the blessings of this place we call home. The seasons change, the colors change, temperatures lower, but we marvel at the creation around us. We are fortunate to live, work, and play here. Thank you. Lord God, we confess we don't always get things right. Too often we don't listen, speak without thinking, and think we got it. We don't, and we need your forgiveness every day. Lord God, we come together as a board selected by our neighbors to govern well. We thank them for the trust they put in us. We thank our neighbors for their support, their opposition, and their passionate opinions on all matters, large and small. We can't do it alone. We need them. We thank you, Lord, for your guidance along the way during these meetings, in our work, and our conversations with each other in our community. Finally, Lord, we need wisdom, understanding to lead well in 2024. We will have opportunities and challenges known and unknown to us that we offered throughout the year. May we collaborate well, listen effectively, and lead wisely, not only tonight, but this entire year. We humbly offer this all to you in our Lord's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you hear me now? Hello? I'm on, so because I can hear it, but I'll try and speak up louder. So. Okay. All right. So the first thing we'll do is we'll look for the approval of the agenda, any additions or deletions. Otherwise, we'll look for a motion.
Like to approve the minutes as written.
Oh, agenda. Yep.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Then the approval of the consent agenda, the approval of the minutes, the payment of the bills. Just one small thing, just a typo on page 4. Under the first motion, it says Keeter and supported by Jones to approve. It should say banking depository instead of baking. So that's all. That's the only thing. Otherwise, if anyone has anything else, otherwise we'll look for a motion to approve.
Move to approve as presented with one correction.
Support. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we're going to move on to public comment. So those, if you want to comment publicly, come to the front. We'll do it in order. And if you would state your name, that'd be helpful. So we'll start in the front here. Anyone in the front row? All right.
Hello, my name is Doug Howerzile, and I teach after school robotics programs for a couple different schools in the area. And I got together with this group from Washington Island Audubon due to some bluebird houses that I had my high school fabrication class make for your park here. And then I'm adamantly hearing about your prairie lands, whether they are to be or not to be and such. So I wanted to come and speak for just a moment. I spend pretty much most of my time, I work for people in Park Township, and I love your parks. I love the name Park Township because it fits. You have the best parks around. I'm an active bird watcher. Ottawa County has more online bird reports than any other county in the state of Michigan. It's a fact. More people document their birds, at least. I don't know if it's more people actually bird here, but I would say the percentages are probably that way. So we have this incredible group of people that come to all your parks to look for bird species, enjoy your parks, but that's not the only thing that it's there for. So I've heard about this prairie being a little bit, wondering if it's off limits, kind of fragile. If you look at other parks that have prairies, upper to Macatawa Natural Area, even though they have paths through it, people venture off into there. It's not fragile. It doesn't break when you step on it. You're not going to kill everything. If you crash a drone into this, if you crash an RC plane, it will be just fine for people to go get it and get their stuff out. If they hit a pickleball over the fence, go grab it. You're not going to kill this stuff. And at the same time, you're investing in the ecology and providing an amazing environment for pollinators, for birds, for a lot of insects that are endangered and just no longer in our normal atmosphere and in our parks. So I've looked at all your cost analysis of what I got some information from your former meetings, and they say that this is about $2,500 an acre to seed this and put up this grass. And it's done. There's no maintenance costs. It's it. So to do what our dream is to do 27 acres, it would cost $67,500, which is under $100,000 less than what the concrete costs to pour for the pickleball courts that are out there, which they are beautiful pickleball courts, by the way. I was pretty impressed by them. I came to look at them and see the area and make sure I knew what I was talking about before I came to see it. But yeah, I just look at the cost analysis and what it is. And, I heard your opening prayer, and we are all stewards, and what we do and how we protect what we've been given is, very important. And I'm just here to beg you and ask to be the voice of all those little creatures out there that we're trying to help protect. And we don't want to interfere with the park. We don't want to take up space or time from the people who are going to enjoy your parks either. So thank you for your time. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone in the second row? All right. How about, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Lee Fisher, Ottawa County Prosecuting Attorney and Park Township resident. And I am here tonight in support to make a public comment in support Sarah Matoyzik, who is running for Ottawa County Prosecutor this year. I am retiring. I'm going to finish my term at the end of the year. And I'm endorsing Sarah and supporting her in her run, along with Ronald France and Sheriff Steve Kemker. And just wanted to briefly introduce her, talk a little bit about her. She's been in our office for over 22 years. She's got a great deal of experience. She's experienced every facet of prosecution that you could want. Her experience will not be matched by anybody else that's going to run against her. I can guarantee that. And she's also built a lot of good, strong relationships amongst the law enforcement community with our law enforcement agencies that would be very hard to replace as well. So she is the most qualified candidate, and I would appreciate it if you would all join me in supporting Sarah as she runs for Ottawa County Prosecutor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Even though we said everything I was gonna say, I need to, if I may. My name is Sarah Twisek, and I am running to be Ottawa County's elected prosecutor. Like Lee said, this is my 23rd year in the prosecutor's office. I've served as chief assistant. This has been my passion. This is what I've always wanted to spend my adult life with, and this is what I'm dedicated to. My husband and I have been married and Ottawa County residents for now, this is 21 years. We have 4 teenage children. We have 2 sets of twins. Usually that is the only thing that people find interesting about me. We have 2 girls that go to Grand Valley and 2 that are freshmen. So 2 18 and 2 15, 3 girls and 1 boy. There's nothing more that I can say about how dedicated I am to this community and the safety of this community. From the very young to the very old, these people and our community is of utmost importance, and advocating for the victims of crime, holding those people responsible for the crimes that they commit within our community is and has always been my passion to this county. And it's the service that I want to continue to provide as your elected prosecutor. I know your time is valuable. My information is there. If you have any questions, there's an easy way to get a hold of me in many different ways, but that card gives you a website for sarahmforprosecutor.com. I appreciate your time and I appreciate what you all do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else in the second row?
Hi,
Third
my
row.
name is Tom Ennis, and actually I just have two questions. They have to do with the absentee ballots that I received. I asked for one for my wife and I, and it was received. We filled it out, sent it back in. We got another one. I called and inquired about why we got another one, and I was told that it was a computer glitch. In today's environment, that is unacceptable answer for me. And I would like somebody to address that. And my second question is, which I've wondered about for a long time, is why do we have to declare on that absentee ballot? I see no reason for that unless there's a directive that I'm not aware of.
So I will say this, typically, public comment is public comment and we don't address the board. However, just Clerk Keeter wanted to address this. Deals with the election stuff.
So, thank you. Tom, it wasn't a computer glitch. Our supplier messed up. So somebody submitted our work order. Our applications went out, and then somebody else found the paperwork, resubmitted it, and the applications went out again. This is a closed presidential primary election. Therefore, you have to actually have a ballot for a party, one of the major parties, in order to participate. If you don't want to take a party ballot, we have a third ballot that is just the proposal that is on the ballot for February. Does that
So
help?
then I would just check the other box.
You can check the proposal only and be in business.
Thank you.
You bet.
But just a note, I know a lot of people in Park Township. Every one of them that asked for a absentee ballot, they all got a second one.
That's correct. The printer screwed up and a second mailing went out of not the ballots, but the applications. No matter what else happens, you're still only going to get one ballot.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Anyone else in the third row? All right. I don't know if there's anyone in the fourth row. Okay. Come on up.
My name is Mary Ann Simonson. I live on West 32nd Street in Park Township. I'm not sure if it's too late for this, but I would like to ask that you do not approve the Shoreline condominium development. There are so many reasons that that development is wrong for our neighborhood. I'm sure you've gotten letters. I know I've sent letters. I've sent letters to the Planning Commission. I would ask at the very least that you table the decision making, and if it's possible, take the time to visit with the neighbors about about this neighborhood. We are basically, even though we're zoned R5, we are basically a single family area, the whole R5 area. There are only two multifamily developments there. One is Belmont, which has been there since, I think it was started in 1966. It's on more land than the land proposed for the Shorewood or whatever it's called, condominiums. And yet there are only 4 buildings with 4 units each. There are only 8 homes on First Avenue. This condominium project is planned for 29 dwellings. That's the potential of adding 58 people or more to this little community, this little area, this little neighborhood. Everywhere I read in the Park Township, whether it's the ordinances or the master plans, it talks about or it mentions protecting the character and nature of the neighborhoods. In the master plan, they talk about restricting the development to low density development on the south side, which we're kind of like a stepchild. You know, we're part of Park Township, but we often feel like we're the forgotten side of town. But I see nowhere with the R5, it's kind of a conflicting category because it's a low density multifamily. And I see nowhere in the ordinances where there is a definition of what low density is. Is it in regard to the population? Is it in regard to the number of buildings you can cram on a piece of property? So today I was a little concerned, well, inquisitive. So I asked Google, what is low density? And as far as an R5 category, the only place I find a definition of an R5 category is in New York City. And there's no way to compare New York City to Park Township. But any place else where it was the definition of low density, what I found was that it was a limit of buildings per acre, and it was normally 4 to 5 dwellings per acre. So what they're looking to build is way above what is considered low density. Now, in regard to the trees, we were told by the builder in October at the meeting here that they were only going to remove 19 trees, or the builder's representative. They ordered a tree inventory, and there are actually going to be 161 trees removed from this 3 acres of property. Now, my concern becomes with the removal of that many trees, what happens to the runoff? What happens to the groundwater? What happens to the water table? There's an environmental impact with removing that many trees. So, and then with regard to the runoff, will the retention plan or retention pond that they have planned for the area, will that be able to accommodate the runoff? Because there will most likely be a substantial increase in the runoff. Our land is already lower than the land. We're directly south of, I think it's south of we're the closest property to where they're going to build, and they're going to have open storm sewers about a foot from our property line. If those clog up, we already have water that collects in our backyard because of the water table and how low our land is. If those plug up, are they going to flood our backyard? And on the other side, if that retention pond fails, is that going to overflow into the neighbor's property? So I would like to ask you as a representative for our neighborhood, if there's any possibility that you could meet with any of us, we would appreciate that. If you could table this until we resolve some of these issues or maybe find answers to some of these things, we would greatly appreciate that. Most of us have lived in that neighborhood for 40 years or more. There are 2 gentlemen that live on First Avenue, which again is only 8 homes, and that's on both sides of First Avenue, total of 8 homes. But there are 2 gentlemen that have lived there over 60 years. To bring in a potential of 58 people with their cars and their vehicles and everything else, that's, we're talking probably 14 people that live on First Avenue right now. Adding 58 people, is that overpopulating the area? There's just so many reasons that this build does not fit the neighborhood. I would like to invite you out to look at the neighborhood, visit with us, see what our issues are. There's the safety issue with First Avenue and South Shore Drive because of the curves there. Belmont originally had an entry off of First Avenue at the intersection of First Avenue and South Shore Drive. And they had so many issues with their driveway there that they had to put a fence up, build a berm, and move the entry to the front off of South Shore. The fence is still down from the last accident that there was out there. It's a very difficult entry to make onto First Avenue from South Shore Drive. So I guess I've said all I'm going to say. I just hope that you will consider us. We've been there for a long time. We've put our heart and souls, our money and everything else into our properties. And, builders have the ability to provide you with a lot of information. We only have 3 minutes at a planning commission meeting and supposedly 2 minutes here, and I think I've taken up more than my time. But thank you for listening, and I hope you think about what I have to say.
Thank you. Right. Anyone else?
Yeah, my name is Roger Simonson, live on 32nd Street. That's my wife. Also, the concerns is my backyard, northwest corner is a foot at least lower than the property they're building on. So they're going to be taking all the trees out, so there's no evapor sucking the water after major rains. I've had 6, 7 inches of water in my backyard. My neighbor to the east has had ponds in his yard from rain and snow runoff with geese in it and ducks. He brought in 2 dump trucks full of black dirt, level it off, but there's still issues. My biggest concern in the whole neighborhood is there's still wells out there. Not everybody has city water. We have septic tanks, drain fields. They're going to be digging down footings. They'll be digging down for water and sewer there and everything else going out to South Shore. They contaminate my well. Who's responsible? You people or the builder? I'd like to know that. During the meetings in October and November, I heard these people for board graphs say, we think this is okay. We think this is okay. We assume this will be okay. They were talking about retaining ponds. There's storm sewers all the way around there going retaining ponds. They assume there's going to be no water in there. Assume. You know what assume means? I do. I think we need to have a professional look at this. The wife was doing a lot with the DEQ. They have a lot of issues with retaining ponds. I didn't hear anything about anybody going to the DEQ. I think my wife has done more research on this land and this property, ordinances, state and township, than I think the builders have. And I heard too many times, I think this is okay, this will be okay. Yeah, we'll be, I mean, there's so many negative answers. And when you have a massive building on 3 acres, that just changes the whole atmosphere of the neighborhood. We don't need, I think so, or we assume. I think we need positive answers all the way around, and there's got to be a whole bunch more research going to this before this goes through. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Anyone else in the back row? All right, now we'll go to this side. Front row, second row, third row, fourth row, back row. Anyone? All right, we'll close public comment. All right, and you can see the department reports. Any questions, comments?
Thank you, Sergeant Barnett Bennett, and the story you told about the deputy swing, and very is he here? I don't see him.
He's not here.
He's not here. Okay.
No.
The board minutes, it's a very inspiring story.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes.
Just want to note that and thank them for their work.
Yes. Yep. Very good. Any other comments? Otherwise, we'll move on to the action items. And first action item is going to be the liquor license application for the 2024 Holland Celtic Festival, which last year was at the fairgrounds and looking to be at the fairgrounds again. So You have the executive summary before you. I know we have some representatives here if you have questions for them. Do you want to say any comments?
Well, I'm here with Pete Graham. We are co-directors of what will be the third annual Holland Waterfront Celtic Festival and Highland Games. We're looking at June 21, 22. Those are the dates this year. And that'll start with a Friday night, we call it a Kaylee. It's a Friday night concert under a giant tent out on the fairgrounds, followed by all day Saturday. Celebrating all things Celtic. The Waterfront Celtic Festival is an annual celebration now of Irish, Scottish, Welsh, and other Celtic ancestries. And those of us who, most of us, I think, are mutts. You know, we're a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'm more English and German than I am either Irish, Scottish, or Welsh. And Pete runs about the same way, so it's kind of a coincidence. But our third annual event is going to be a follow-up to our highly successful 2023 event, which was held on this same site. As you remember, we moved from a downtown location out of necessity, and it turns out it was a really good move because we never would have fit the 10 pounds of potatoes into that 5-pound sack anymore. We were already overgrown and outgrowing that site. And we're actually looking at kind of busting at the seams now at the fairgrounds with the area that we've been using. So we're looking at expanding a little bit and pushing our fences out a little broader and so on. But if you went to our festival last year, and I know some of you did, it's just an electric kind of atmosphere. The whole place lights up. There's music coming from everywhere. There are kids and you know, people of all ages running around. We have Scottish clans setting up their little hospitality tents. We've got dancers, both Irish and Scottish, in a dance tent this year. 2 music tents, if we can figure out where to put them. And then the Highland Games, of course, are going on in the infield of the track, and of course, right in front of the grandstand. And if you've never seen Highland Games, it's a sight to behold. You see these men and women, generally kind of husky, kind of strong, obviously, throwing what could only be called a small telephone pole, cabers are what they're known as, and throwing the hammer and tossing giant stones and sheafs of hay. And it's just an amazing thing to watch. We have quickly become a little bit more than my opinion, but it's certainly, in my opinion, one of the top Celtic festivals in Michigan in just those 2 years. With the number of athletes we bring in, the sheer number of bands and music acts that we bring in, we've already outdone a lot of the smaller size festivals, and we plan to do nothing but grow. I do want to tell you that we are holding yet another tips training session for our volunteers to make sure that all of our volunteers are safely serving alcohol when they do so. We're also going to have Ottawa County Sheriff deputies on site, and overnight security and good lighting and everything we can do to make this not only a fun and that electric atmosphere, but to also make it safe and to make sure we don't have any incidents. We've gone 2 years now without any major incidents at all. We had a lady pass out this past year just from heat stroke. And I guess we'll take that, considering what we're looking at over the next 24 hours. A little heat wouldn't hurt. Pete, did you want to add anything at all?
Just that it's an exciting opportunity to share the culture that has been overlooked perhaps for many years. We've had so many individuals come up and say, yeah, my grandmother is Irish, my grandfather is Irish or Scottish. It's interesting to find out how many people in this diverse community really welcome the opportunity to come in and learn about their culture. We also have in the athletes this past year, 75, 20 of them right from the immediate area that have never been in a Highland game. They came down and got practiced with this Lynn Movie who lives in the area, and they're enjoying it. So we're getting more and more participation from local people that never thought about this 3 to 5 years ago. But welcome you all to come. As you see the card there, there's no strangers at our festival, just friends you haven't met. Friendly atmosphere. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, and we're here to answer any questions you might have. And obviously, we're looking for approval of the liquor license, since that becomes a big part of whether we can even do this event. It's the first hurdle we need to get through, and then on, that's where all the real work begins. So thank you much. We'll stand by for any questions. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Right. Any discussion?
Just have one little thing, just so everybody knows that the fair board, when they voted, it was a unanimous decision for this.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. Any other comments, discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Motion passes. Very good.
I still want to say aye every time someone says that after 28 years on the city council.
All
Even
right.
though it's been 10 years since.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Well, glad you're going to be back.
We're all like.
Well, all right, now we're going to move on to item B, which is the community park prairie space. We talked about it at last month's meeting. It got tabled and now it came back. So it's kind of a cafeteria style as far as what we want to do. So from that standpoint, did you want to have any comments?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Good evening, board. Good to see you guys again. Last time I was here, there was a Packers hat being worn, so I'm glad to see that's not the case, but maybe they'll meet in the playoffs, which would be a lot of fun. So I have some exhibits that were provided in your agenda. I printed them on 11 by 17s. Howard, I don't know if it would be useful to have a little larger exhibit for the board or not. Be willing to hand that out?
Yeah, you're fine too. They have it on their desks. They have it on their dais. Some of them have an 11 by 17, but.
So while that's being handed out, I want to respect your time and keep things moving. So thank you, board, for considering this prairie. We have Holland Autobahn here, some representatives. They're also very much in favor of this prairie. Last meeting, I wasn't able to go. We had RSV going through the family. I got a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old with RSV, so I was disappointed to not make it, but I'm happy to be here tonight and answer some questions. So one of the things that I heard brought up and some of a rightful concern by you guys as a board was the idea of this prairie becoming a no walk zone. So you guys want this to be a community park, right? You want to have people be able to access the park, to be able to use the park and have multiple users. So first I want to address that and say, just like a lawn, if you're putting in a soccer field, let's say we did a soccer field instead of a prairie, you would have to bring in topsoil and seed. You don't want people stomping on that while the grass is trying to grow, right? And the prairie is in the same position. So Tanner Bricker from the Outdoor Discovery Center is here as well. He provided some awesome information on how long that stuff takes to establish, and it just takes time, right? So for a time while that's being established, you won't want to be walking on it. We'll have signs from the Outdoor Discovery Center that indicate restoration is in progress, letting people know to stay off it. But once that prairie gets established, people can explore it. So we've had plenty of people at different parks like Hemlock Crossings or Upper Mac that venture off the trail and go tromping through the prairie. I would say, though, just like a forest, like Cooper Van Wieren, people tend to stay on trails, right? We're kind of like herd animals in that sense. If we have a trail, we're going to follow a trail. But once it's established as a prairie, you have free reign, go walk in there, right? So next thing is I want to discuss users. So you guys are trying to think through how this can truly be a community park, right? You don't want to put in something that just one interested and passionate group of people like birders are going to use, right? I can say that there are going to be a lot of people who are going to like this prairie. So Jim, I know I shot an email to the board from Ottawa County Parks from some representatives. Prairies are really popular. As you guys can see, prairies at Ottawa County Parks like Hemlock Crossing and Upper Mac and Grand Ravines are often backdrops for photos. Provides an awesome backdrop. Instagram people love it, right? They draw all kinds of people to go get family photos at a prairie. My wife, her senior picture was in a prairie, right? So you see a lot of pictures of people buy wildflowers, you see engagements. It's going to be a draw to the community for people in your community and outside your community. I also want to say that you have these awesome trails here, right? And you want people to use the trails. A wooded trail attracts more people than I hate to say, the trails that we have now through the airport, right? Right now, we're kind of looking at an invasive species dirt patch. That's how I like to describe it. And when you convert that into prairie, you're going to have something that's going to draw people. And having those wildflowers and grasses attract people. Go to Hemlock Crossing sometime in the spring. You'll see dog walkers. You'll see birders. You'll see runners, bikers. You just see a wide variety of people that love to use these trails. And you have something then for them to enjoy and look at instead of its current state as it is right now. So the next thing I want to, I guess the last thing quick with users is, yes, if you have a prairie, you might not be able to kick a soccer ball in it, right? But we have soccer fields. Windstrom Park is an awesome place for people to access and go play soccer. So the prairie then is going to provide a different, I guess, different users something to enjoy, right? So the next thing is related to the drone and RC flight. So Jim, I appreciate at our last meeting, you provided that explanation of why drone and RC was there. It's because of your history of your airport. I have Park Township history book because my family grew up in Park Township. I don't know if you've heard of Jacobacy, but that's my grandma's maiden name, and Timmers. We had some Timmers known in this area as well. But I looked at, the airport was here, I think, since the 20s, and it's been a staple of the area. So you want to provide kind of that similar use with drone and RCs. And I would say that with a prairie, that's going to only improve for drone and RC people to enjoy. So a lot of drones have cameras on them. If you're flying a drone over that drone area with a camera, it's going to be a lot prettier to have a wildflower in your picture than to have what they're looking at right now. So I would encourage you guys to consider that for drones, it's also going to be a nice resource for them to enjoy. What I also want to say is that if you guys have concerns, let's say the prairie gets up to a higher level. I talked with Tanner, who's more of an expert in this stuff than me, but prairies can be mowed. So you guys are putting this in with the intention of not probably mowing it, but say the grasses get high, mow during the dormant periods to kind of knock it down a little bit. And actually, from a birder standpoint, I was talking with some birders, it kind of actually simulates grazers that used to be in the area. So in Great Plains, buffalo eat prairie, right? So there's various levels of prairie heights, and actually shorter grass prairies attract different birds than long grass prairies. So that gives you a lot of flexibility. So if you have concerns with a drone area with grass being tall and drone people not being able to find their drone, mow it in the spring, mow it in the fall. That knocks down some of those grasses and wildflowers, for to have a lower level. And that's still a lot cheaper than continually mowing and watering a soccer field, right? So another thing I want to talk about is the looks. I believe some of the concerns that you guys had some concerns on how things would look. Yes, this summer, this spring, Tanner indicated that they would come in and take out all the invasive species. It's going to go from an invasive species dirt patch to a true dirt patch, right? You're going to have signs warning people about that. It's not going to be pretty. But as the fall comes, he grows some grasses, and the grasses get up to 4 and 6 inches. Next winter, it's probably going to look better than it does right now. That next spring, you're going to start seeing wildflowers come up, like black-eyed Susans, or I don't think coneflower will come up yet, but you'll see other wildflowers coming up. And then as the next couple of years go by, it's just going to get more and more of a nice-looking resource. So I want to encourage you, it's going to take time, but I think it's worth the effort. Next thing is, I think kind of goes along with users, is just talking about nature in general, right? Nature has always been in vogue, right? I don't know if anyone has seen like petroglyphs in Arizona. A lot of them are nature scenes, right? You go into caves, there's cave art, it's nature, right? It's been in vogue a long time. Now Instagram people are going around taking photos of themselves. So adding this to your park, it's a safe investment, in my opinion. It's low risk, low cost, high reward. People are attracted to prairie. You're going to get people to go to prairie. It's going to provide for multiple users. Another thing with nature too, I know a lot of people now are going to nature-based schools, right? So Outdoor Discovery Center has grown by leaps and bounds. It's been incredible. You guys have a school right in your township. There's one in the city of Holland. I believe Gentex is maybe looking at one. There's the main campus in Hamilton. Zeeland Christian School, where I went, they have a nature-based school that's doing well. You've got one at Holland Christian. A lot of schools themselves, like Black River, have very nature-based programming in their schools and incorporate that in education. nature's going to continue to be in demand. And as these kids grow up, they're going to be looking for places like this. And while they're young, they're going to be looking for a cool place to go with their family and maybe teach them some of the things that they've learned about native plants. And that's what Park Township could provide, which I think would be really exciting. One of the other things is just the future. And I know some concern was brought up on the future of this, right? You don't want to commit yourself, in a sense, have a ball and chain where you've got prairie for the rest of your time. Prairie is easy to remove. Grab your mower, mow it down, get rid of it. That would hurt a lot of us birders, but you have the ability to change that into what the people of Park Township want. So if for some reason 10 years from now, the Park Township community needed more soccer fields or needed more baseball diamonds, prairie is pretty easy to convert over compared to a basketball court or skate park, playground, pickleball, right? You've got to remove all that concrete and then convert it into something else. Prairie is pretty low risk on getting rid of it and turning it into something else. I would like to say, though, us birders don't love that idea. And we hope that as you put in this prairie now, you might see that it's actually a huge community draw. And in the future, people are going to demand the prairie stays place. But you guys have to make those tough decisions. And if your constituents want something different, that's what you need to provide for them, right? So with that, I want to, I guess, bring up the exhibits that you guys have, the 11 by 17s. So if you look at Exhibit 1, if you flip it over to Exhibit 1, which was the McKenna Master Plan, that red area shows the prairie area that was included in the master plan. A lot of people, birders especially, came in and were a part of that master planning process. A lot of them who live in Park Township, like Carl and Judy Manning, who emailed your board. And what McKenna is showing is a pretty large area as prairie. And what I want to point out too is they also showed the drone area as short grass meadow, which in a sense, meadow and prairie are equivalent, right? So we as a birding community and a nature community would just ask for you guys to consider your master plan here and follow that and kind of put prairie there. Flipping to Exhibit 2, what I guess that would look like then would be, for simplicity, I guess, zones A through G would become prairie. That would be about 27 acres then of prairie for the time being. That would include the dedicated drone area where right now you're not going to really have any use for that besides drones. You don't want people walking through there if a powered parachute's landing or drones are flying over. So that at least adds beauty for people to enjoy from the trails, right? Without then going into that drone area and being at risk of getting hit by a drone or whatever is going to be using that area. So my recommendation to you guys would be to consider option 2 that you have in your packet that is closest to what the McKenna Master Plan is. I think you guys could talk with Outdoor Discovery Center if you had concerns with that whole drone area be converted and maybe phasing that so that you don't have areas then that can't be used for a short time by the drone community. You could phase it out, which is a potential. But that's what we as a birding community and a nature community would love to see from you guys. So does anyone have any questions?
Any questions? Okay, all right, good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Any comments? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Clarification, you referred to option 2. I see many options on that
I
page.
think-
I want to make sure I understand what.
Make it this page here,
Okay.
which would be 83. I'm assuming it's the Northern Prairie option.
Yeah.
Northern Prairie. and
Okay,
drone area.
I got too deep in. I'm sorry, I got too deep into the other ones. Okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
If I may, with a clarification.
Sure.
So I think coming out of the meeting from last month, and anybody who disagrees, please say so. But I think the consensus was coming out of that meeting, the stuff to the north of the pathway that cuts the property in half was a go. So Zone E, Zone D, Zone C, Zone A, and also Zone B, which should have been included but was not. It was just the area around the community garden. So that's everything. If you look at the map, there's a long trail that cuts the almost, it's a little bit north of the middle, but cuts the middle of the site in half. The community center, the bottom right-hand corner where the community center is zone M, people were in agreement with that as well. Because we don't know when the community center is going to be built. So really the areas in question, if you will, the big area in question is zone F and zone G. So the big drone area. So that's the big area in question. And then the other areas, zone L, zone J, and zone I, and zone H, those are areas that we do plan on developing, but we're not sure. So again, the stuff north of that middle trail, it seems like everybody was in agreement with. The stuff on the corner where the community center was, seems like everybody's in agreement with. The drone area was up in the air, pun intended, or maybe no pun intended, but it's a good pun nonetheless. And the stuff at the bottom is also to some extent still for debate. So I hope that clarifies where we were from last month.
I defer to my colleague Brian as it relates to, I see parking on the backside of the proposed community center area. We are going to need some parking for the pickleball courts. Is there any thought that as we get the pickleball course going, will we need some temporary parking on the back side of that zone M to service the parking lot, the pickleball courts? Yeah, and that would influence my decision whether you put a nickel into that or not with prairie grass.
Well, I think a lot of that's going to depend on use, and we'll know that pretty quickly come springtime.
Yeah.
So I can see that we're probably going to need some parking.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with parking is the expense.
Yes.
Because we can't have dirt parking because our ordinances don't allow that.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have to have paved parking. And so that's going to be a little bit more expensive.
Could we go to the zoning board of appeals to get a variance on that?
Yes, we can.
Well, yeah, we'd have to. We'd have to.
Yeah, we'd have.
I mean,
it was for a temporary standpoint.
Right.
I mean,
right. But we just have to have a plan as far as, okay, you can't just have a gravel parking lot in perpetuity. What's your plan and when are you going to pave it?
Well, yeah, I say that in jest, but I'm saying, okay, if there's no building yet, but you said, okay, for 36 months, you have a gravel parking lot at lesser expense until the team and the architectural and the insurance companies and everything else plays out to save the expense to find out what it totally is. I mean, I don't want to design a parking lot that doesn't make sense to the building that could be there. It's not guaranteed it's there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you just have to be careful because others have been told they couldn't have a gravel parking lot because of the ordinance. We have to live by the same rule.
Yeah, that's true. I'm with.
So, but we could get a variance for a time, perhaps.
I think Daniel's going to say something on the side.
Please.
You're not legally obligated to follow your own ordinances, you've chosen to use.
Oh.
And so the board has historically taken the position that we've adopted an ordinance for our public to follow, we will follow it.
Yeah.
But there's like this general concept that you're not obligated to follow your own.
Yeah, I guess we should.
That's critical, yeah.
Right, right.
I mean, that's one of the comments I would make is the reality of the community center is that it is going to be years before we get a good plan together around that. I appreciate the thought around quote unquote the short grass in zones F and G. And that the other reality that I keep looking at is the cost to do all of this is not a deal breaker kind of cost. If we got 3 years, 4 years of aesthetically pleasing ground compared to what we have now, I think that's a win for us. The thing that I am concerned about is I don't want someone to walk away from this and think, oh, that's the way it's going to be from now until forever, because the park is going to be in change, right? We are going to build a community center. We are going to do other things. Needs are going to come up where land is going to have to shift and it's going to have to change. and I don't want us to be constrained by that. I don't want us to think that, oh, we'll never be able to do anything in that area, because the needs of the township are going to change over time. But I do think that it's a good initial, we need to do something, right? We got a weed field out there right now. So
My suggestion would be that we, that entire corner, what zone is that? That entire corner that isn't parking lot should be planted in the prairie.
I agree.
And throw in some extra wildflowers, because
Make it pretty.
that's you're driving right into the heart of Park Township. Let's make it as pretty as we can. We'll take it out when we put the community center in, and it'll still be pretty. Yes. So.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Quickly.
Yeah, if the board agrees, I think anything that fronts, for the folks who are gonna be installing, anything that fronts the road, heavy on the wildflowers. Right? The internal stuff can be more meadow, grasses and other stuff, but heavy on the wildflower for stuff that fronts the.
One comment that I didn't see in here is that it's really emphasis on prairie. We did receive our grant for $25,000 for trees. And I see a little on the McKenna plan, some trees on the, if I interpret those brown dots on that picture as trees. And on the back side of the pickleball court, we certainly will need to have trees, bushes for a wind stop. And so I like to challenge back to the ODC and the design group to say, okay, how can we create a combination in certain areas of tree installation? Because we did get rid of that grant. It won't be the last $25,000. You're not buying that many trees with $25,000. But yet I would just challenge that, hey, there is a strategy of tree. Being a beekeeper, I would say that I have some contacts as it relates to having trees that are pollinators as well. So there is good trees that can also enhance our bee population. I'll advocate for my girls as well.
So
well, I think zone K kind of addresses that.
Yeah, I just didn't see in particular, it doesn't seem like we have a lot of detail on that zone. And I think, type of trees, size of trees, I think the quicker we get larger trees on the backside of the pickleball courts, the better, because it's going to be windy out there.
Right. Are you looking for a motion?
Still looking for a motion.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with air zones A through M with direction around F and G being short grass, mowable type field.
I'll support that.
Right, any discussion? I guess I have a question.
Do we want to put K in that? Sorry.
Yeah, that would be included in that.
He said A through M.
Yeah, so really all the areas. I'm not singling anything out.
I guess my only problem with that is if we do A through M, we've taken away all space for RC flights.
Oh, so the future RC runway would also.
Well, that's what zone H is.
Ooh, okay,
I would
okay.
rather say,
Can I
if we're
amend?
going to do this, can we turn H into the runway and not have a future runway, but actually have a runway?
Have a runway. I would, can I amend my motion?
Yes, you may. So
I'd like to amend my motion to not include zone H, with the direction being that H would be developed in a quote unquote runway fashion.
And I will again support that motion.
And then I have one more question regarding that. I'm ignorant when it comes to this stuff. Can these powered parachutes take off in 1.6 acres?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Now, my understanding is the short grass, they could take off on that as well.
Yeah.
Right. Except not for a time, because it's going to be, you can't use it for 1 to 3 years potentially.
How quickly could we get on the short grass?
true roads either.
Where do the power parachuters park and come off of? Do they'd have to take off of zone H?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's why I say if they can take off in 1.6 acres, then until zone G is developed further, then they still have some room. It's a little tight perhaps, but
Yeah.
in the long run, it'll be better for them.
If you see those guys take off, they lay their chute out behind them. And they rev up their engines and then they start running. And the minute that chute fills, they're airborne. So they need probably 100 feet or less of running space. So
Great.
1 acres should do it.
the reality is, look, zones G is gonna get beat up.
Yeah.
Right?
I think for the time being, it'd probably get beat up for, as people are using it, and
Yeah.
they need a little more loving
As we go on.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
It's not the end of the world if when we have the powered parachuters in once a year, that if they trample in zone Z, it's not gonna destroy anything. If it's like 1 week out of the year, or maybe
Frequency and.
Yeah, okay. Good.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Danielle, could you read that, please? Okay, could you repeat that?
The motion was that to approve zones A through M with the exception of K, or excuse me, with the exception of H. Being that then F and G would be focused on short grass.
And then are you just leaving H out or are we developing that into a runway?
And also then developing H into a usable quote unquote RC runway.
Okay, all right, okay, so there you have it.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's all right, just wanted to be thorough. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll call the vote. Hearing no questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, very good. Thank you for all your work. Appreciate it.
Very good. Well,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Good work. That's good stuff.
All right, we're gonna move on to the historic hangar. Do you have anything on the historic hangar?
Our esteemed building inspector, Mr. Chad Warden,
Okay.
to present to you. He has been doing all of the work. I just pester him about once every 3 days. Actually, every other day, probably.
Well, I've got all the electrical quotes, I've got all the plumbing quotes. I only have one of the main quotes for getting everything demoed and rebuilt. I'm waiting on heating and cooling quotes. Right now, if I take the low bid path that I have, I'm up to 110,000. And it's probably going to be somewhere between 150 and 200 total once I get everything. Once I get the other quotes, I don't have any heating quotes right now because there was a little issue with that. They have to change some things.
Yeah. Sorry, one of the things I should have said is tonight, we wanted to keep it on the agenda because we have some information, but this is not a full package for voting for tonight. So we wanted to keep it on the agenda and make sure that you guys, if you had any questions, we know that we've been at this for a while and it's kind of been pushed back. And so we have some information, but not the complete package. So it'll be again in front of you for next month. And then again, yeah, feel free to ask any questions if you want.
But yeah, that's where we're at right now. And then by next month, I should have a full bid so you guys can make decisions.
Okay.
Chad, saying, I'll make the assumption that it's approved or we move forward with this project. What's the duration of the construction rehab?
It's not a super big project, but it depends on ordering. There's some commercial doors. It needs the smallest heater you can get, which probably isn't in stock. And the heat and air for the bathrooms. And it should be a couple month project.
So it could be available for use sometime this summer.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
What's the big ticket item?
When you're talking 150 to 200,000.
The cheapest electrical quote I have is 40,500 right now. That's the cheapest electrical quote.
400 or 40.
Yep, the building quote I have is 46,365. The plumbing, the cheapest complete plumbing quote I have is 23,585. But part of that we have to do anyway. We need to bore a new water service over because we're going to tear down that old FBO building. So some of that has to happen.
You get a new panel also, electrical panels.
The electrical panels are newer in there and they're good for what we're doing right now.
200.
And it's like 200 amps or 260 amp panels in there.
Okay.
There's plenty of spaces. And when we took out the lighting for the runway, that was a pretty large power draw. So we'll be fine for right now. Now, if we want to, I mean, if you guys want to find a certain use for it and want to upgrade it and make it a food truck plug-in place, it may need more power.
I imagine the doors are fairly pricey.
The doors, we're trying to figure out how to rebuild and keep to save money.
When you say doors, you mean the hangar doors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of why we can't meet energy code on that part of the building. Because if we want to keep the look of those original doors and keep those doors, meeting energy code will be difficult.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. All right, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
All right, now we're going to move on to item D, the countywide road millage renewal. You see that before you. This is something that's current. It's just going to expire, so we're looking to renew it. So if someone would like to make a motion.
Make motion to approve the county renewal for our roads.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Now we're going to move on to item E. And I know we have, we have Mika Weiss here. We have obviously Trustee DeHaan from the Planning Commission. Any comments on the Blue Haven site condominium development? Any questions?
He checked it out, figured out these three and then presentation.
Oh.
Yeah, it was-
For Blue Haven?
yeah, the Blue Haven.
Oh, okay.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
My name is Chuck Hoyt. I'm from Nader Veld. I'm here representing the developer of Blue Haven, that's Bauman Builders. Just real quick, we've worked with the planning staff here at Park Township, and we heard any of their concerns and comments, and we responded to them. We met with the Planning Commission several times. We heard their comments and responded to them. At those meetings, we heard neighbor comments as well, and we think we've addressed most, if not all, of their concerns. And then, of course, we'll be submitting to agencies. That includes your township engineer staff, as well as county stormwater, and any of the other reviewing agencies. So we think we've put together a good plan. You've probably seen everything. The Planning Commission did a great job, a thorough job of going through and making sure that we have the best projects possible. So there's a list of recommendations of conditions of approval. We are in agreement to all those, and we're looking for approval tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Great. We'll look.
Regarding the proposal, as it's presented to you, I think Mika did a good job of summarizing it and has the various conditions that are listed there. But I'm willing to take any questions you might have regarding the proposal. You're familiar with where it's at, and we know that was West Ottawa's original plan for school.
Things that are already there.
So as a result, the drainage there is well maintained and has plenty of capability to take the runoff. It was designed, the water table and all that was designed for the school, so we don't have a whole lot of parking as you would with a school. So the water situation should be really quite good there.
A question, Terry, there's a carve out on the corner of 160th and James. What's, this is just carved out and for further development, or is there's a big chunk that's empty, that's not part of this development. What was the, it's just not part of this program, or what are they gonna do?
Right on James Street?
Yes.
Yeah, no, not on James Street, but on 160.
It's on James, it's on James. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It looks like there's 4 other lots up
Yeah,
there.
further lots, and you get this.
Three.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask Mr. Nader.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
know
I can
what that
speak
is.
to that if you like.
Yeah.
So the intent of that is to do land divisions. The idea was to do a few land divisions prior to this project. So that area is not included in this project because it's simply going to be subject to the regular Land Division Act. This is a site condominium, so this fell under a little bit of a different category. So the idea is there'll be land divisions that happen on that little piece. The remainder of it is the site condominium project that you see.
If I may, Mr. Chair. It needs to be said. I'd like to say, and this is not disparaging to the developer, but I do want to be clear that this is not something that the township desires in terms of those land division splits. Not to say that we don't desire the overall development. We actually asked the developer not to do that. It is allowed under the law, so it is absolutely legitimate for land division splits. Generally, we'd like to see those things not happen because the master retention, the master utilities planning around the site does not get transferred to those land division splits. Now, from a developer perspective, oftentimes those land division splits happen ahead of time because they help fund the rest of the development. You're selling off lots. And it happens all the time. It happens throughout the state of Michigan, but it is something I've talked to Mr. Martin about it. If there is a way to encourage in the future developers to limit that and have all of the development sort of master plan and the roads coming in the development as opposed to sites off of James, because you don't generally like cuts off of main thoroughfares. We would rather see that. But I want to be very clear that it is absolutely permitted in the law. And it really has no bearing from the perspective of approval of the development itself, because they're separate. But I also want you to realize that from a planning perspective, we'd like to see it different.
Well, I guess
Steve, what's gonna happen there, they're gonna have lots there. That are gonna have driveways coming off on to James Street.
Yeah, and I guess my overture to the planning commission is if that comes through, if we could do something that is similar to Post Avenue where 2 driveways or 2 houses share a single driveway. I drive down that road, to see 5 or 6 driveways coming off James. I wouldn't be terribly pleased. On the other side of that road, on the west side of that road, there's good examples, I think, of either 4 or 6 houses that end up sharing a driveway. And so my concern would be is future development of those is just minimize the amount of driveways off of James Street.
Well, yeah, and you're seeing that already happening north of James, where the subdivision is gonna go in across like kitty corner to this.
Yes.
And he's already did the same thing on that subdivision as he did here, and he's already building, putting the infrastructure on those lots already. So, yeah, we hate this.
Right. Any other discussion?
The only other comment I have is it seems like it's in keeping with the surrounding area.
It very much is. We don't have plans for the houses, but the statement has been made that it'll be very similar to the Wildflower subdivision. That's right.
And from a density perspective, it seems comparative.
And this is the condominium.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So I think the houses will have very similarities to it.
Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the site, Blue Haven site.
Second.
Right. Any other questions, discussion?
Did I say that right or not?
Site condominium.
The
Site condominium development.
The Blue Haven site development.
with the stated conditions.
With the stated conditions.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just one comment, observation, as I jam through the significant packet. They do make it very clear that this is not a subdivision that will allow short-term rentals. Another example of, in some sense, how newer subdivisions post 1980 who have HSAs and actually have some regulation have prevented that from happening. And where they end up right now are in these in some sense unregulated subdivisions. So again, both these plans come in very specifically saying no short-term rentals.
That would actually be in the HOA agreement, wouldn't it?
It is.
It is in the master agreement.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So perfect.
Right.
Any other observation, Steve?
Any other discussion?
Again, my comment would be, subject to the pending litigation, that the zoning ordinance doesn't allow them. Again, that would
Right.
prevent them from being restricted by condominium association, deed restrictions, homeowner association, et cetera. But right now, your zoning ordinance doesn't specifically allow them.
Mm-hmm.
But
The only way it would is if it was a PUD
correct,
and it was approved that way. But
correct.
because it's not a PUD, they can't do it anyway.
But again, it doesn't hurt to have it both, because if your zoning ordinance is one found to have allowed them through the litigation, or two, you decide to change it, they wouldn't be able to do it.
They wouldn't be able to do what they asked.
Correct.
Wow. So they override that.
Perfect. The homeowner association rules or the condo association rules would be private property owner to private property owner versus public to private property. Okay, so you are the public and you set the rules for the public generally, but individuals could sort of further restrict their property rights through the homeowner association rules or condo deed restriction.
I think
Which is what they've done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Article.
Yeah.
Right.
13.
The only thing I'd say in addition to that is it's really important to not assume that anytime you're looking at a development with an HOA, that the HOA is going to be around forever. Because we see many examples of HOAs that have gone dormant and are no longer enforceable, where the rules are no longer enforceable after 34 years. So, point of clarification.
All right, any other discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we're gonna move on to F. Any comments from Mika or the a representative for the planning?
The representative.
Is there a representative
Yeah,
here?
they're in the back.
Oh, okay, all right. Didn't know that.
Good evening, Mike Bosgraf, 873 South Shore Drive. I am the developer builder of this project. And so in your packet, you should have pretty much all the information that the Planning Commission and Micah has sent forward to you. We've had several meetings with the Planning Commission, addressed most of their concerns as far as, well, actually all their concerns. There was a request to move the entrance drive, a request to preserve some more trees. There was a request to take one unit out. And so we've done all that. It is kind of a by rights development. Your master plan, your zoning allows for what we're doing. You know, there's probably 12, 13 boxes that we've checked, and I believe we've checked all of them. There was a couple comments made tonight about water resources. In your packet, you'll note that there's reference to the Joe Bush and the Water Resource Commission has signed off on the project. We have to submit final engineering to him, but he's got a letter to say dated December 29 that he's reviewed all the stormwater and as relates to that and has approved it. We are still working with the Road Commission. The Planning Commission was subject to Road Commission approval, which is typically normal. The Road Commission and ourselves have been asked to look at lowering or narrowing the taper. First Avenue is not a very aggressive road. the road commission has a fairly aggressive taper as we come in. The taper is problematic in that it pushes us right into that first line of trees. And so we're trying to encourage the road commission, which we don't have a whole lot of control over, but to reduce the taper so that we can pull the taper farther away from the entrance trees, which will preserve another tree. Also, with the planning commission, there was a request for us to go back and look at trees. We did look at trees. We did a tree survey. We've submitted that to the planning commission. We've talked through that. Second meeting, we adjusted again. And then at the last committee, they asked us to look at, I believe 7 or 8 trees. We did look at those 7 and 8 trees, and we believe we can keep all of them. We've moved a couple patios to different sides of the building to pull them away from the drip zone. And so I think there's one tree that I'm referencing that's up towards the front where the taper is. And if we can get the taper, then I think we're good with all of them. I think that was all, unless anybody has any questions.
Do you want to just expand a little bit on the tree survey and the amount of trees that you found that were the arborist that you used and how he defined those and how you proceeded with that?
Sure. We were asked to go out and mark all trees that were over 8 inches, which we did. And then we had Nader Velt come in and place those on our site plan. We overlaid that onto our engineered drawings so we could see where the buildings are. We moved them around a little bit. And then your tree ordinance is very clear about, if we take them, what we have to do in regards to putting a tree back. And so we have quite extensive buffer zones as well as trees coming back into the project in accordance with your tree ordinance. A lot of the big trees that we're trying to keep are up towards the front. There's 2 rows of maples, soft maples. And then there's a good deal of soft maples going right down the lot lines. And so we were able to keep most of the trees on the lot lines. And there's a big clump of trees up towards the front, towards the neighbor to the south, that we were able to pull the buildings back and preserve that area. So you'll see it just to the right of the entranceway. There's a heavily treed area there that we're preserving. And then we're preserving those first rows of trees.
That whole survey is in the packet. You can see that. What I just was going to share with you is that with a significant amount of the trees that are coming out were basically dead. We're going to be dead in a short amount of time. So yeah. I would say 60-70% of the trees that you're taking out are really it's a fall down in the next year or two anyway.
It's a beautiful piece of property with a lot of old growth trees, but they're all soft maples that are running 35 to 40 years, and they haven't been forested for quite a while. So there's a lot of good trees in there. Unfortunately, a lot of them are in the way, and a lot of them are coming out for stormwater management and some of that areas as well.
Any other questions?
I'll just iterate right now and state that this is a condominium and not an apartment complex. So you have 29 new condominiums going into Park Township. And that's going to be in a price point that's going to be pretty favorable for entering professional people. They can't afford a single family house.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you. I guess the only question I have, he made the comment by rights. Is that because it's R5?
Yes.
Okay, so do we really have any?
So question, forgive me. The
Go
question I have is, I get that it's R5. I get that it's a multifamily thing, but it feels like every square inch has been used for either retention, driveway, or condos. And while the the development that we just looked at was in keeping with the area around it. This is not in keeping with the area around it. The exact same size lot in front of it has 16 units on it, which that feels reasonable. 29 feels excessive. And while I don't disagree, it's R5. I don't know if there's much we can do as far as it being multifamily. Why 29? It just feels like, holy cow, we're paving the thing with as much as we possibly can.
The reason it's 29 and not 30 is units per acre calculation. And so it is within the guidelines of the standards that will allow the number of units for that piece of property. And it maxes it out. You are absolutely correct.
I think, Brian, you may be comparing apples and oranges. The development we looked at before is freestanding homes. And that would naturally they'd have to be spread out. And it would limit the number of dwellings you could put on that property. This is as R5, that's a different story.
It just feels like a lot
Well, you
in an area where it's not.
Weren't you referring to the condominium complex that's just to the north of where the property's going to be?
Correct, yep.
Isn't that what you were referring
Yeah,
to?
exactly.
Sorry.
Which is 16 units.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, don't get me wrong, I don't think that's a small development, but it feels more at least appropriate for that area. Especially when you consider the average lot size around it. I don't, it's just the way I feel about it.
Sure.
So.
But again, from a legal standpoint, it meets the standards in terms of our ordinance.
Did I miss it or the planning commission discussion not in here in this part?
Should be.
Well, the discussion, I don't think is in there. It'd be in our minute.
It was in the other one.
It was in our minutes.
The minutes should be, I will take responsibility for that. The minutes should be in here if they want.
The same meeting.
Huh?
It's the same meeting.
It's the same meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Weiss.
So it's in this one here?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Next time we'll duplicate that.
So.
Yeah, so that it's just a little easier to find.
So the planning commission voted 6-1 on this with one commissioner voting opposed to it. Within his, I asked him exactly why he was opposed to it. He said he just doesn't seem to be the right development for this particular property. Was his comment. And you can see that the conditions they were, the presenter here, identified those conditions again with this, and it's pretty standard conditions that we're going through again.
I could say something at the October.
Oh. No, I'm sorry. Because it's not public comment. Sorry.
Thank you, but review the October meetings. The minutes.
Even on the, I don't see the minutes on
I
the.
don't think so. I didn't see the minutes in there. I've never seen.
Maybe I just read it seems like I read something that gave me the impression there was minutes. So that was my fault. Okay.
No, but it's my fault. My responsibility. There should have been the minutes in the packet for both developments. It's not a legal requirement that it be there.
It's just helpful.
But it is correct. Would you like them to be printed? Or is it too late?
It's too late now.
We can
Right.
move.
I guess,
Was there any particular aspects that you wanted to know from the planning commission that I might be able to answer without looking at the minutes?
yeah, I do have a question. So the maximum is 30, but you took it down to 29.
Well, the units per acre comes out to a rounding aspect, and it rounds out 29.4
Okay.
for 29.7,
Mhm.
and we rounded down.
Okay.
I said 27, 29 point.
Right.
And the original proposal was 30. So it's all 2 bedrooms, and probably what they're gonna do is take that 30th unit, make it 29 by making it a 3-bedroom. Just consolidate 2 of them together, if I was to guess.
Okay. And what's the minimum for R5? Or is there no minimum? They just
I think it's just per
just
acre.
per acre.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
All right.
Terry, would you happen to know what the footprint footage for a 4-unit building would be? Is it, I mean, this kind of curious, does the builder, and Mike, do you know what, the footage of the 4 units, what would that, equate to on a single
Yeah,
family
so
home?
the plan that we're building here, we've built several times. We just finished a project similar to it off Lake Michigan Drive in Standale. And they tend to be 2 to 3 bedroom condominiums with lower levels that we'd finish, basement level that we'd finish into a rec room. I would say they're 1,450 square feet in 2 levels. And so I would say the main floor has got to be somewhere around 750, 800.
Right. Right. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan put together for Sherwood Lane condominiums development with the recommended planning commission recommendations with the conditions as stated.
I'll support.
Any other discussion? All right, we will. So I just have one other question. So really, because it's R5, don't have much choice, correct?
Would need to.
You always have a choice, but it meets the density requirements of the ordinance. You would look through the conditions that are being recommended to be imposed by the planning commission. You would look through the standards of approval. If there's one of the standards of approval that makes you think that the density should, for whatever reason, be less, you could do that. That could be subject to a challenge by the developer. But the ordinance would allow this at that density. As Brian was indicated in terms of the property across the street, I don't know what that is zoned. And so I think Skip might have been saying, comparing apples to oranges. I don't know if the property across the street is zoned R3 or R5, but if you're comparing an R5 development to an R3 development, it would be subject to a larger density, smaller lots, etc. And so that's one of the things that you would be looking at. So as Terry indicated, it complies with the current zoning. The planning commission has gone through the standards. They've recommended approval with those conditions.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you. All right. All right. Any other last questions? Otherwise, we'll vote. So, all right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Lauren and Brian. Okay, now we're gonna move on to G, manager's compensation. All right, I sent you the levels, so, and I think, oh yeah, you can see that the CPI is 2.9 this year. And so I guess we'll look for a motion. Yeah, yeah.
The conversation, the idea I have is that I think the easy route for us to take is to, change the compensation by the COLA. And that'd be reasonable and acceptable. Based on the performance of our manager, I think there could be a change that might merit a change. today, we do not have a scale or methodology to say, okay, this was a good year or bad year, good, better, best. And one of the concerns I have is if we were to raise that percentage from 2.9 to a larger percentage, it makes the base wage higher and higher and higher and higher.
Right.
And it starts to put future generations of future boards in a little bit of a pinch, going like the particular base wage of all of our employees starts to creep up. And man, you get 20 years in and that wage scale you're just way up. What I'd like to suggest is that I can make the motion to say, make the difference on a 2.9, but push back to the evaluation committee to say, okay, how do you end up having in some sense, a compensation system that appropriately rewards our manager for good work done? And we have a simple system, not complex. And then the board would say, hey, on a regular basis for the next 3 to 5 years, there's discretionary money to be paid for a bonus. But yet it goes through approval of the board, goes through the system of the salary or the evaluation committee, and the evaluation committee makes a recommendation about what extra should be done. The concern I have, it would take this whole how much more, and I want to reward work well done. And our manager does a great job, but I don't get excited about throwing a percentage out, saying, hey, I think he's 3% better this year. Or 2% better. I think we could say, okay, hey, if the board would consider a sum of discretionary bonus, the salary committee makes a recommendation based on all our evaluations that we gave him personally, and say, hey, there's merit here to bump that up. So that's my recommendation. Not a motion. I'm saying throw that back into the committee and we can make a recommendation over the next month or two. But that's how I would suggest a way going forward. So, yeah.
I like that.
Okay, but just so you know, if we look at this, there's 9 different levels.
Yep.
Once someone hits level 9, they really don't go up anymore.
Yeah.
The only way, and if you saw this from last year, then you would see that things did shift, and it shifts because of the CPI. So ultimately, even though it might go up, they're not really making more because of inflation.
Yeah. But also, Jim, we, on a regular basis, we are tasked as a team to have an understanding of what the ranges are of other jobs in our community and beyond. And so I think the ranges change as things get more competitive for good employees. And so I think, that also is a factor rather than just the CPI number. And so we might find that in 5 years, we could be low and we need to work hard to retain our manager. So I think that's another factor. So it's a complex issue, and I appreciate us debating it in public here to say, okay, hey, we don't have the answers to this, but I'm offering a solution, but a suggestion of a way forward that could make sense long term. I would be concerned. I've heard of a manager on the other side of town that has a substantial wage, but it's been year after year after year after year, and he's still. My sense is that the board probably wouldn't want to pay that gentleman quite that much, but that's the outsider's view.
So a discretionary bonus could be, you had a good year and you got to get this much. But if a discretionary bonus would also enable you to say, you didn't have such a good year.
Get nothing. You get the COLA. Yeah. Yeah, so I just offer that as a suggestion.
So it's not tied to the 1 through 9 brackets. Because the 1 through 9 bracket, as I understand, looking at this, is the 1 is the low end of your salary range, and 9 is the high end of your salary range. And you've got to move through the various brackets to get to the highest level, so to speak. And I would assume that from a rating standpoint, that ratings play into what bracket you're in as you continue to increase knowledge and experience. But at some point in time, not everybody gets to bracket 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. Correct? Right. But what you're really saying, so if bracket 6 is where you're at, and you're at the max of 6, COLA automatically increases level 6 or every one of these levels?
No, because the brackets change as the COLA changes.
Correct.
So
So
these numbers here were different last year.
Yes.
So, so if someone did not get a percentage increase, they will always stay at the same level. And, because now they're getting a bonus instead of an increase in salary. So in which case, this is a moot point because they're always going to stay the same. Because you're never increasing their salary, because as the COLA increases, this shifts the whole bracket. So I guess if the board says, well, we're not going to increase your salary, we're just going to give you a bonus, that's an option. But that's, I mean, depends on how you look at it.
Mr. Super, I don't follow how COLA shifts the bracket.
All right, so
COLA
if
increases-
COLA goes up 3%.
Okay.
Okay, next year, increase this by 3%. Next year, increase this 3%. Next year, increase this. These numbers all get bigger as the
Correct.
COLA increases.
Right.
So,
But you're not shifting it's just that particular level is increased by 3%.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
You're
shifting to a bigger number. That's what I mean when I say shifting.
Okay.
So,
You're on it. Thank you. I thought you were shifting to
No.
to another.
no, it doesn't shift you to another level. It just shifts these numbers higher.
Yes.
So, yeah, I guess that's a way to keep the all employees at the same level, and then they never increase. So, so
They keep paid for the cost of living.
Right.
Right.
They keep paid for the cost of living, but.
right.
But but what they're. Sorry.
Is there any reason? Is there any reason why that wouldn't be feasible in a municipal pay scale setting? I mean, that sounds like a great idea for a business. Is there any reason why that same principle can't be applied here?
Which principle are you referring to?
The idea
Yeah.
of a discretionary bonus.
Sure, thanks. Article 11, Section 3 of the Michigan Constitution prohibits extra compensation. And it provides that political subdivisions cannot grant or authorize extra compensation to any public officer, agent, or contractor after the service has been rendered. If it's a bonus for service that has been rendered in the prior year, that would arguably violate the Constitution. If it's like a merit-based increase for the foregoing year, it would be fine. So part of it depends on how it's structured.
All right, I retract what
All
I
right.
just suggested.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
he just said by an elected officer, right?
So,
Does
I said by a
that
public
apply to
office.
staff?
I apologize for interrupting, Terry. Go ahead. and finish.
No, I'm sorry. Does that apply to the staff? I mean, the way he read it, I thought it was an elected official.
It's public officer, agent, or contractor. So the agent, Howard would be an agent of the public. It doesn't specifically say employee, but the spirit and intent would include not only public officers, but agents.
All right.
Agents.
Okay, my apologies for that suggestion. I'll put my business hat, leave it my business hat at the door the next time I walk in. So Howard, trying to be creative with how compensation is done. Apparently our Constitution doesn't allow that.
But Mr. Manager, don't you also in your salary administration give merit increases?
Yes.
Right.
But
So-
they're based on, so typically how we do this is, and first of all, just so the board knows, Jim asked me, he said, "Well, what do you want? Or what do you desire?" And I said, my comment to him was what the board thinks is appropriate. I'm well compensated for what I do. I work very hard for this community. I believe I give this community great value, but I'm not like I think whatever you feel is appropriate to reward a good year is fine by me. I'm well compensated and fine with where I'm at. But I did say to Mr. Gerard that some acknowledgement of a good year is nice. Last year, I knew that the COLA was going to be really high in the neighborhood of 8 and 9%. And I specifically said, I don't want an increase. And one of the board members said, don't ever do that. Never say you don't want an increase. So I'm not like saying I need some big thing, just something to reward good work. So what do we do for the rest of the employees? You're correct. We have a merit-based system. We have a 9-step system that all employees are on. And when a good year is done, we typically give either a quarter step, a half step, a 3/4 step, or a full step. Typically, the way the salary system works is you generally get a full step until you get about 4 or 5. Once you get to the middle point, you generally go down to whether it be a half step or a quarter step or a 3/4 step, not a full step every single year. And the reason for that is because if you were to give a full step every year for good performance, typically you assume that somebody's going to be in a community or hope to be in a role for 20 years or more. You'd get to the number 9 step really quickly. And so usually when we get to about the halfway point, we start tapering that back. But yes, within each of those steps, we give merit-based increases based on that. Every year, there's a COLA, and that COLA, as you guys have talked about, increases those steps by the percentage of that COLA.
Okay. All right. So we'll still look for a motion.
So are we at a point where we're saying this is the discussion of a merit increase?
Yeah, COLA, if I may, COLA is set. And so, Dan, from a legal standpoint, I guess I would ask the question, am I allowed to be treated differently than all other employees? So all other employees get a COLA. So that is set in our policy that everybody gets a cost of living increase. So that is set. So it's really above that. And I guess one thing that the board should know is, I'm an exempt employee, so can that be treated differently?
Yeah, so a couple of different things. You are exempt. You'd be being treated differently by position of being the manager as opposed to, and you're supervising all the other employees. What I would want to look at is what your contract specifically says. I don't have a copy of your contract in front of me. I don't know if the contract essentially says that you'd be getting a cost of living adjustment on an annual basis or not.
Typically, the way manager contracts are written is, and I think mine was written this way, but it just says that I would receive whatever benefits that the rest of the employees do, whatever benefits and increases that the rest of the employees do.
I'm not going to give an opinion on the contract unless we read it.
Of course.
But you can be treated differently than all the other employees.
Okay, thank you.
As long as it's a non-discriminatory reason.
Correct.
This would be a non-discriminatory reason.
Correct.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
Great.
That, well, okay, a 3.5% increase, 2.9 of that would be to take care of the COLA, and then the additional would be merit.
Thank you.
Any second?
I can support that.
Okay, any discussion? Right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
Thank you, board.
Good discussion. So, all right, now we're gonna move on to H. You want to comment on that at all, Brian?
So H is the request of the the steering committee for dollars that would be associated with marketing, surveys, the kind of things we're trying to do. One of the things we're really concerned about is making sure that we get the voice of our community around the community center. And so what we're looking for is a budget appropriate to be able to allocate against surveys, the materials that we're going to be producing, as well as the different events that we're going to be doing to get that input.
Very good. Question, Brian. I see a couple different firms. You didn't select a firm, or you just requested quotes from a couple of firms?
We requested quotes from a couple of different firms. There's people within Lydia and Lynn both are in the process of talking to the different firms, and everybody's got their own little flavor around it. We're trying to find somebody we think that would be good at connecting with our township. And so what we're really looking for now is just, if possible, we would like just a budget and then be able to make the decision and then be wise about and be fiscally responsible about spending that budget the most appropriate way possible. Versus coming back and the back and forth and the time that would take. We're really trying to get this done as quick as possible.
I'll make a motion, put it on the floor. Make a motion that budget for $25,000 is allocated to the community center research
committee,
Research committee, and the selection of the vendor rests on that committee.
Very good.
And may I make one more addendum to that? Is that the funds come out of the ARPA funds?
Okay. Very good.
Support.
Lauren already did. Do you support the amendment? Okay.
Okay.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, now we are going to excuse me, look for a motion to go to closed session.
Make sure you specify the reason for going into closed session.
Which is on your agenda. Copy, just state what is on your agenda.
Like go into closed session as outlined and stated on an 8-1H and 13-1G. I apologize, it's 8-1H of the Open Meetings Act to consider material exempt from disclosure by section 13-1G of the Freedom of Information Act, particularly records subject to the attorney-client privilege.
Gotta read that.
Do you agree with him?
Yes.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? Otherwise, we'll do a roll call vote.
Oh,
Yep,
yes.
I was remembering. Yeah. Only taken for you.
Trustee DeHaan.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee Cerny.
Yes.
Trustee Spulhoff.
Yes.
Clerk votes yes. Mr. Supervisor.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
That's be my recommendation. Getting these things you need it. Yeah, you do. Shakespeare's Shakespeare's brevity and solution. No.
Who misses? The line up in the men's room. Right. Did I hear you say you'd rather than Ann Arbor, right? So, right. Well, maybe in that.
Right, we'll look for a motion to go back into session.
So moved.
Discussion, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. All right. Manager's report is going to be brief.
Yes, sir. Again. The biggest thing is not only the work around the STR lawsuit issue, but the biggest improvement recently has been we installed a new sign at Lindstrom Park. You might have seen it. We also installed a new sign at Cooper Van Wieren, which is the exact same sign. So when you drive down Perry Street, you'll see that one. There is a little bit of concern. We all share that concern of when you drive by, it's hard to see the lettering. It's hard to see the lettering. It's hard to see the cut. So we're investigating some options of some lighting and or some backlit type stuff or some vinyl behind it to give it some color. So we're thinking through that.
Solar is cheap.
Solar, that's right. Solar is cheap. Yeah. And then the other thing is Brian and I walked the Cooper Van Wieren bike trails. One of the main loops of or clover, if you will, of the bike trails is in. It's already been cut in, which is great, and they're already starting to work on the second one. Brian and I have talked about signage out there. In particular, I want him to work with the chief to make sure that we have mile markers identified. So if somebody has an accident, which is an issue that happens when you have trails in parks, so that the chief can know, hey, I'm in front of mile marker so-and-so, and he knows exactly where to go in a situation of a medical emergency. So two really big improvements there. We're continuing to work on Cooper Van Wieren and the signs, more signs to come over the years. And then we continue to work through the property behind us, and you guys will all be kept up to date as that moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, public comment? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to board comments. Trustee Cerny.
Fair board, nothing's really going on there, and CBA, there was only.
All right, Trustee DeHaan.
Yeah, but there's a couple comments regarding planning commission, you well know, our conversation, I think they have been overhead and the discovery of the activity, so she has been people planning and stuff, but she is meeting with our consultant for the master plan. And she's continuing to do that on a weekly basis and have delegated specific tasks to our consultant to do, working on that. Basically it's the background and all the geographical geographical it's just thank you. Never mind. Description of the regional area, I'm sorry. And so that master plan is in process. The PC itself has made a decision to have 3 additional meetings in January, February, and March. Total, so in those 3 months we'll have, instead of just 3 meetings, we'll have 6 meetings. In order to kind of get going and focus on the master plan to get that done. And then the final comment. I think 3 of us are planning to attend the MTA Capital Conference, which will be held on the 23rd of this month.
Very good. Right. Clerk Peter.
I emailed my report from the West Michigan Regional Airport Authority, so I won't linger on that. I just want to make one caution. We approved the millage for the county road commission. They're saying August or November. I would point out that we have our bike path renewal on the August ballot. That's what we've planned. And I'd hate to have too many millage requests on the same ballot. So perhaps as we talk to the road commission on down the line, we should take that into consideration.
Very good. Right. Trustee Jones.
We've been, or we haven't met since our last board meeting. But we continue to work on survey questions and those kinds of things around the community center. So certainly progression is being made there. Keep you posted.
Great, thank you.
Just a caution, I don't know if anybody else received, I received a phishing email from Jan Stegrada. I don't know if you saw that, but so this, if you see something, Jan, that was definitely not her.
Okay.
So I would eliminate that. So just, I saw that today, came in today. Okay, great, thank you. I'm looking forward to a strategic plan session for us. It would give me direction from the CEP point of view, as we have expanded funding. All the other municipalities are going in. I want to make sure I represent the board. So if there's particular issues or challenges, certainly we have a lot of ideas, but I certainly would love to hear your opinions about our collaborative funding of organizations. And if you say, hey, you know what, we all focus on children or, you know, I don't think we need another park. I think we ought to be focused on what ARPA actually was, you know, actually helping people in need. So if there's things that you have a passion for, please share that with me so I appropriately represent our team.
Very good. All right. The MAC did not meet in December. Please note, we have the budget meeting at 1 p.m. on February 8th. So besides the usual meeting at 6:30, and that's all I have. So we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Very good.